Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Ryan. In today's video, we're going to be going over skill checks. When do you use them? How do you use them? What are they? What do your skills sort of break down into? How do you understand what they're actually useful for? What's the difference between nature and survival? And when would you use one over the other? All that kind of stuff. We'll break that all down today in this video. Real quick, before we get into that though, a polite reminder, we're about to kick off our brand new campaign, me and my friends, me as the DM, and it's a world that we've created from scratch with brand new NPCs and cities and locations and all that stuff. Great lore. So part of that is that we really want to have excellent artwork done for this. We've already got an artist working on some of it, but it was expensive. So if you're interested in supporting, we'll have behind the scenes content, session 0, stuff like that will be available for Patreon supporters. We have a $6 tier, link in the description and the pinned comment. And if you choose to support that, we will definitely blast those things out via Patreon so you can get some behind the scenes information on this campaign, lore, all that kind of stuff. That would help us tremendously so that we can continue to hire artists to do great renditions of these places and these people in our world. Now, let's talk about skills and skill checks. So as you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, you will frequently encounter obstacles that you will need to overcome. So your DM will decide what skill is necessary to overcome that obstacle. They will also decide how difficult it will be to overcome that obstacle. So they could set a difficulty level of easy, medium, hard, impossible. You get the idea. And you will always roll a d20 for a skill check or ability check or a saving throw. So let's give you a quick example here, just so you understand what a skill check is. Let's say as you're adventuring out there, you encounter a door that is jammed. You try to open it, it just won't work, it won't budge. So you suggest maybe, hey, to your barbarian in the party, hey, why don't you come over here and try and force this thing open for us since you're Mr. Tough Guy? So your DM will probably say, okay, excellent, so why don't you give me a strength check here? So you'll roll your d20, and you'll add your strength modifier to it. So got a 12, let's add... we'll use Baird. We'll say Baird Stoutstone. We use him a lot for a lot of our examples. He's got a strength modifier of +2. We'll add that to it, so we got a 14. Now, if the DM decided that this door is pretty easy to open, it's just got a difficulty class of 10. Difficulty class just means how difficult it is to overcome that obstacle. Let's say he gave it a value of 10. You got a 14. Bam, you're through the door. Let's say he said, I want this to be kind of difficult. So you rolled a 12, added your 2, so you got a 14. Well, that's less than 15, which is what was needed to get this door open, so you failed. That's what a skill check is. It's a moment where you try to use your skill to overcome an obstacle. Your DM will tell you what skill to use, and they will also set a difficulty score that you need to overcome in order to accomplish the task. But skill and ability checks go beyond just naturally occurring obstacles like locked chests or a hole to jump over, because D&D is all about player freedom and creativity. So you as a player might actually suggest an action during combat, outside of combat, that you think sounds awesome and totally in line with what your character would do. So let's say your bard wants to create a distraction and so chooses to jump up on the table and sing a song in front of the enemy camp to allow his teammates to sneak into the chief's tent and steal the key to the jail cell, right? So your DM might say, okay, well, give me a performance check to your bard. And you would then roll the dice to see if your bard is witty enough to come up with a compelling song on the fly that would distract the camp of bandits and thugs. Now, another thing I should mention before we start breaking down the individual skills and abilities is that sometimes your DM might opt, instead of having everybody roll individually, they may do a group check for different things. So let's say, for example, you're on a road, you see a group of marauders coming towards you, so you all jump into a bush to hide as a group collectively in this bush. Now, instead of having everybody roll to see if they succeed or not, and then, you know, 2 of your characters who are stealthy, they pass, they get in the bush just fine, but then the other 2 roll like really low. They're your big lumbering barbarian, stands out like a sore thumb, and he throws the whole stealth check off for everybody. So they may instead say, let's do a group check. There's a couple different ways of doing this. Usually what they'll do is they'll have everybody roll their stealth check individually, add your modifiers, and then they will just say, if half of you guys manage to succeed, everybody succeeds. Really simple. Or they could say, we'll just take the averages. So let's say that it's a difficulty class of 15. And, you know, 2 of you roll high, 2 of you roll under and fail, but you average out the 4 scores and it ends up being like 15.5. Hey, you pass as a group. So sometimes they may do group checks instead of individual checks. Additionally, you might encounter a task where multiple people in your party are proficient at, like say maybe picking a lock. Let's say there's a lock that needs to be picked. one of your players who's proficient with thieves tools goes and they start picking the lock, and then a second one who can also use thieves tools comes along and says, I'm going to cooperate with you to help you overcome this task. Now, someone who isn't proficient in picking locks wouldn't really have any value to add to that process. But since this player does, since they are proficient, we're basically going to give an advantage roll to the person who's doing the lock picking as they're cooperating, so they have a better chance at succeeding. But what skills and abilities do you use and when? What's the difference between wisdom and intelligence? Aren't those kind of the same thing? Let's start breaking these down one by one. Let's start with general abilities. These general abilities on the left side of your character sheet are broad categories that are then broken down into more specific skills to the right of them. You cannot have a proficiency in an ability, but you may have a proficiency in one of the more specific skills or even the saving throws within that broad category. So first we have strength. A value of 10 represents the average person or a commoner's baseline. Anything below a 10, that means you are less than average at that thing. And anything above 10 means you are better than the average at that thing. So Baird here, for example, he's pretty strong with a value of 15. Strength is a basic measure of your physical power. A strength check can be used when trying to lift something or push something or break something, like maybe rope bonds that an enemy places on your wrists. Baird here has a modifier of +2 to strength, so whenever he rolls a strength check, he would add 2 more to the value on the d20, making him more likely to succeed. Now let's move on to dexterity. Dexterity measures body control, so things like agility and balance and reflexes and having steady hands if you needed to remove a splinter of glass in an open wound. A dexterity check would be used when doing things like picking locks with thieves' tools. You could actually apply your proficiency bonus here if your character was proficient in the thieves' tools themselves. A dexterity check might be made to try to catch a delicate item that a party member throws to you. Basically, any task that requires having body control or accurate use of motor skills, that would fall under the category of dexterity. Then we have constitution. This is a measure of your overall healthiness, right? How stout and sturdy are you? You would use a constitution check to hold your breath underwater while trying to remain hidden, or when trying to survive with less food and water on the road. You might use a constitution saving throw to drink a pint of ale and try to maintain consciousness in a drinking game against an NPC or another player. More on saving throws in a minute. Then we have intelligence. This is a measure of your gained knowledge, like how smart you are when it comes to appraising the value of a gold watch, or when you need to recall what you've learned about a certain deity, or what you know about magical properties and things of the sort. It involves logic and memory. Then we have wisdom, which is quite different from intelligence in that wisdom is more about how attuned you are to the world around you through your experiences. You know a thing or two because you've seen a thing or two. So while an intelligent person might know what an owl bear eats, a wise person might be able to tell that the owl bear is agitated and is about to attack. And they may in fact even be able to calm it down. They have good instincts, they can read body language, and maybe even tell if someone is lying or not. Wisdom is a very handy ability to have a high score in. And finally, we have charisma, or Riz, as the kids are calling it these days. Charisma is a measure of your ability to communicate with others. So someone with high charisma can laugh and joke. They can persuade people, and they exert confidence. They are well-spoken. They are eloquent. They might even be able to entertain others with a joke or a performance. These are the people you want stepping up to try to diffuse a hostile situation without provoking violence when your party is tired and in need of a rest to regain hit points. Okay, so now that we have a broad understanding of the general abilities, let's look at the more specific skills that fall underneath those ability umbrellas. So each skill correlates to an ability that governs it. Strength, for example, has just one skill underneath its umbrella, and that is athletics. Your athletics skill would be used to shove an enemy into a pit, and your DM would ask you to use athletics to try to jump over a pit as well. But athletics would also apply to something like swimming, okay? It's anytime you need to use your body to do something challenging. Under the dexterity umbrella, we have several skills, including acrobatics, sleight of hand, and stealth. Acrobatics isn't about jumping far, it's about landing on your feet. So for example, if you needed to run across a patch of ice and not fall down, that would be acrobatics. If you were trying to do a flip or a cartwheel to look cool, that would be acrobatics. If you fell off of something and you wanted to land deftly on your feet and not fall prone, that would be acrobatics. Sleight of hand is about doing tricky things with your hands. So maybe you wanted to conceal a key in your sleeve, or you wanted to cheat at a card game by swapping two cards without your opponent noticing. Or maybe you want to try to snatch something out of an NPC's pocket and steal it. And then we have stealth, which is pretty self-explanatory. This is when you do not wish to be seen. You can't really go into stealth mode in the middle of an empty room with full light, right? Crouching down wouldn't make you invisible. You still need to use things like light and physical cover to conceal yourself, and then use stealth checks to avoid making noises or drawing attention to yourself. Now, Constitution, it doesn't actually have any specific skills underneath it, only a saving throw, which we'll cover momentarily. Move on to Intelligence. We've got several skills here, including Arcana, History, Investigation, and Nature. Arcana is used when trying to understand the magical properties of something or how a magical item might work. History is used when trying to recall information that you have learned about historical events, cultures, and people. Investigation is used when you're trying to deduct something or what might have happened. So this could be piecing together what the scratch marks on the wall are about or examining a crime scene. Nature refers to your knowledge about the natural world, like terrain, plants, animals, and weather. And finally, religion is your knowledge about deity worship and occult practices. Then we have the wisdom umbrella, which includes animal handling, insight, medicine, perception, and survival. So animal handling is a skill that's used to communicate with animals, to calm them down, or just have general interactions with them. Insight is a tricky skill that people often misunderstand. Insight is about seeing under the surface. It's about reading body language to tell if someone is being dishonest or if they are in distress. If an innkeeper says, "There's no one here by that name, now please leave," a player might make an insight check to determine that this man is scared for his life. He's sweating, and he could be being threatened. Medicine is a skill that's used to treat wounds or assess the physical damage of an injury. This could be removing an arrow from an ally without doing more damage to them. Perception, this is a fun one. Perception is all about your ability to take in the information around you. You can take notice of finer details that others might miss. It's all about using your senses. What do you see? What do you smell? What do you hear? What do you taste? What do you touch? And finally, there's survival. The line between survival and nature can sometimes get blurry, but generally speaking, survival is more about things like tracking a creature through the woods, or foraging, or finding a trail, or avoiding hazards, making a fire to survive the night. And lastly, we have the umbrella of charisma. My wife lives under the umbrella of charisma in our games, and she abuses the heck out of it whenever she can. Charisma includes the skills deception, intimidation, performance, and persuasion. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory. Deception is getting away with a lie, like, "He went that way." Intimidation is trying to convince someone with force to cooperate with you, like saying, "Leave that man alone, or I'll ram that pitchfork into your belly." Performance is about performing an impressive act like playing the lute, or singing a song, or telling a compelling story, or doing a silly dance. And persuasion is about convincing people to see things your way or do something you want them to do with a good argument and sound reason. And there you have it. Those are all the skills and abilities in Dungeons and Dragons and what they're used for. But there's one final thing we need to cover, and that's saving throws. When you need to resist the effects of something being done to you, you would attempt a saving throw. You wouldn't tell your DM that you're doing a saving throw. A saving throw isn't something you queue up. A saving throw is a reaction to something that happens to you. So you may need to use a saving throw to try to resist the effects of an enemy's spell, or to resist mind control, or to resist the effects of alcohol on your system or poison. Your DM will always tell you when it's time to attempt a saving throw. Okay, let's bring this all home. Hopefully now you have a better understanding of what the skills and abilities in Dungeons & Dragons are all about, how to use them, when to use them, why to use them, all that stuff. Also, feel free to plead your case to your DM anytime you think your proficiencies and your skills would come in handy, because your DM isn't going to memorize, most of them aren't going to be memorizing your character sheet and trying to understand when, they're not going to be telling you when to do these things. It's up to you. So you need to be your own advocate here, and sometimes they could say, well, that's going to be a survival check, and you might say, you know what, I think it's actually going to be a nature check. Here's why I think my character's proficiency with nature would be more applicable here. And they might relent, and they might say, you know what, okay, that's fine. Why don't you do a nature check, but I'll raise the difficulty class by 2, right? They might be transparent about that as well. So you can always plead your case. You know your character. Thank you so much for watching the video today. If you enjoyed it, then let me know by leaving a like on the video, as that's the best free way to support the content right here on YouTube. And consider subscribing for additional Dungeons & Dragons content. And with that, I say be warm and well fed, my friends, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.